October 12, 2013, Lululemon employee did not show up for her shift. Now, if you think about this, this is nothing serious. I mean, people always call in, I think we've all played hooky at one time in our lives. But what rose a lot of suspicion to her colleagues was that she wasn't answering the phone. Now, for Kelly Dwyer, she was very attached to her phone. It was very immediate. She had a very heavy digital footprint. So for her not to answer was immediately a red flag. Kelly Dwyer was born September 27, 1986 in Chicago, Illinois, but she was raised in Lincolnshire. There wasn't much on her upbringing other than in high school she was given the news that her parents were getting a divorce. After graduating, she decided to make the move to Milwaukee, Wisconsin. By 2012, she was employed by Lululemon as a sales associate, and she would also pick up extra jobs. She was a yoga instructor, and she would also nanny for a well-known chef. To escape from all her work, basically party, hit up all the bars, and she regularly began to use cocaine. It's also noted that on one occasion she was sent home from Lululemon because she appeared to be intoxicated. She was also on several dating sites, so she's young, she's living out her life. One of those guys that she went out on several occasions with was Chris Zacco. Chris was born on January 5th, 1975 in Connecticut to also divorced parents, but his parents were divorced at a very early age for Chris. So he would have to travel in between homes from San Diego and Connecticut. After his graduation, he went to Boston University to obtain his international business degree. So in an interview, his mother stated that Chris had his dream job at the New York Yankees Stadium, where he was the IT guy and he had his office in the Yankee Stadium. This man is living out his dream, but he just mysteriously transferred over to the same company that his mommy worked at. So just keep that in mind because that's gonna come back around. When Kelly met Zacco, he was pretty up there in that corporate firm that he worked for with his mom. Detectives say that Kelly was just drawn to him because he has money, he has the nice cars, he's handsome, he's at a good place in life, he's old, he's pretty stable. Kelly was pretty open about her relationship with Chris, and the last time that she saw her dad in September 2013, she told him about Chris, and he was a very successful man, he was wealthy, and she didn't say it, but he could see that she was falling in love with this man that she was telling him about. She told him that he was an IT executive and that they had been dating for about a year. The two met through a mutual friend, and here's the kicker, because Chris would say that they were just friends with benefits, but Kelly, on the other hand, did tell people that they were in a committed relationship. But Kelly still met with other men because she did see that she wasn't going to get anywhere with Chris. So I think we've all been in a sort of a situationship like that where we know it's not getting anywhere, but we're still very hopeful. And the thing about that is that she would go back to him. That was just her constant go back to guy. And her friends would always see that she would have bruises on her wrists, on her neck, but Kelly would just laugh it off and say, it was a crazy night. But since it became very consistent, that raised a lot of red flags. October 10th, Chris and Kelly go to Chris's apartment, and then they later go to a cocaine supplier where they come back empty-handed. They end up going to a bar that is within walking distance of Zacco's apartment, and they end up coming home at about 2:37. Keep in mind it is now early Friday morning, where they go up to the 18th floor, and that is the last caught footage of Kelly Dwyer alive. And that is what brings us to October 12th, where Kelly doesn't show up for her shift at Lululemon. She hadn't been missing for a whole day before anybody realized she was gone. So by Monday, October 14th, detectives begin with the last person that Kelly was last seen with, and that was Paco. He is interviewed by the police and he tells them that they are just party buddies. So the detective asks him, what do you mean by party buddies? And he literally told the police, we do lines of cocaine together. That's just what we're all about. He rolled out the timeline for the last night that he was seen with her. He said that they went to his house, then they went to the bar, came back home, did a couple lines of schmocaine, had some schmecks, and passed out on separate ends of the couch. He said that he heard Kelly leave at about 9 a.m. and he said the only reason he knows that she left was because he heard the door shut behind Kelly. While she is interviewing Zaco, another investigator is going through the footage at the apartment, and he sends her a message telling her she doesn't leave the apartment. There's no footage of her ever leaving this place. So keep in mind that this was a very high security building. He was very quick to say that Kelly was also seeing other men, that he wasn't the only man that she was seeing, intimately. At this point, the police are trying to find a way to prove that he's a suspect, so they use his own words against him and are able to get a search warrant because he did say that they were doing illegal substances. They were able to search his home and they found jars of marijuana, lines of cocaine, and several painkillers. He is in police custody, so he's basically like, you guys should really let us know that it's gonna be chilly in here so we can bring a coat. Sir, you're gonna have a lot of cold nights. Please just let the police do what they're gonna do. They're also able to obtain a search warrant for his phone to help with any sort of clues, and what they find is shocking to the police. They find a video containing sexual activity between him and Dwyer. It was clear to police that she was in distress and she couldn't breathe because he was shoving her face into his groin area. This video was taken approximately 3 weeks before her disappearance, so that also lets police know that this was something that commonly occurred between the two in their relationship. Police also found pictures of Kelly unconscious on Zaco's bed, but the police weren't able to link this to her disappearance, so he was only charged for the drug possession. But while they were doing their search at Zaco's apartment, they did notice that the shower curtain was ripped off, and there was also some hooks that were messed up from where, someone would have pulled on the curtain. So they then brought in a canine to search for decomposing body. Molly actually signaled several places in his apartment complex, starting with, sorry, I have to look at my notes because it is a lot. The door entry, the parking garage at the level where Chris parked, the dumpster door, the hallway, the guest bedroom, the guest bath, and Zaco's bed. So now that the detectives are strongly motivated to believe that this was the last place where Kelly was last seen, they try to find more evidence, and then they start to go through his electronics at his house. They found strong videos of child pornography, and at that point, this dude is just sick. Chris Zaco, of course, denies any sort of knowledge as to where he could have obtained these files, and his mom also states in an interview that his stuff could have been mingled in with other things from his IT job, because he's an IT guy and they go through a lot of disks, a lot of drives.
Bombastic side eye, criminal offense.
So by November, he is out on bail and he's awaiting trial for his drug and child porn charges. So the case is obviously starting to pick up on traffic, and one of the viewers who sees Chris Zaco on TV is his girlfriend of 4 years, 4 years, sees her boyfriend on TV with these alleged charges. So her brother reaches out to detectives, and his sister is able to help them out with seeing if there's anything missing in his apartment. She identified that several things were missing in his apartment, starting with the shower curtain. She did say that that restroom did have a shower curtain, that there was also some little hand towels missing, as well as a very big golf bag that she says that she would always tell him, when are you going to get rid of this? That they would always have to actually hop over it. It wasn't something that he was in any sort of way in a rush to get rid of. It was just always there kind of in the way, and it was missing. Keep in mind, this thing is about 4 feet. Several other women would end up speaking out against Chris Zacco, and that man had a long list. And this is only the women that actually spoke out against him in court. So his sex addiction actually started when he was 16 in high school. And some experts say that that was actually his coping mechanism for his parents' divorce when he was young. So in high school, there was 2, I believe, women who came out and spoke against him in court. And they did state that he didn't respect the safe word. Another woman also spoke out, and she told her husband that if anything ever happened to her, the man to blame would have been Chris Zacco. There was also a woman who stated that after they broke up, he broke into her house, where he went in and raped her while her children were asleep. And another thing to mention is that during their relationship, she told Zacco that she couldn't engage in anal sex because it was physically unbearable. She had a medical condition that made it extremely painful to engage in that sort of activity. But he went on to rape her while he was in her house, and she said that she was too scared to alarm her children. Just laid there, and Chris would just tell her to shush. So with all the information that they were able to obtain from the apartment, they created a timeline. At about 10 the next day, on October 11th, Kelly's phone goes dead 2 minutes after Chris Zacco leaves his apartment complex. So police believe that he put Kelly's body in the golf bag that his girlfriend identified, and he put that in the trunk of his car with Kelly's body inside. So that night, he actually had plans with his girlfriend of 4 years, but she states that he was actually an hour late. That night, she says that he was not himself, that he actually sweat through the sheets. He was sweating really bad. The police believe that he was sweating because they believe that Kelly's body was in his trunk that night, causing him to be extremely nervous. Police believe that he disposed her body the next day because he went on a 160 round-trip drive to go buy a block of cheese for his in-laws in Wisconsin, the cheese state. But it would be several years before police actually got the evidence that they needed to use against Chris Zacco. May 1st, 2015, a man on a walk found human remains, which were later identified as Kelly Dwyer's, and they were actually found 45 miles west of Milwaukee. So finally, after 5 years, police believed that they had the evidence that they needed to link Chris Zacco to the disappearance of Kelly Dwyer. He was on trial for first-degree reckless homicide, hiding a corpse, and strangulation. The prosecution's case was that Kelly and Chris were engaging in a sexual act where he killed Kelly by strangulating her. And like I noted earlier about the women from his past, they were able to use that against him because it's almost as if he found some sort of gratification from taking these women to the edge. So the prosecution stated that they believe that he wrapped her up in the shower curtain, put her in the golf bag, and then put her in his trunk where he would later dispose of her body. The defense was really quick to say that their client, Chris Zacco, confirms that she left at 9 a.m. in the morning, and they also stated that Kelly saw other men and that could have been what put her in harm's way. Chris Zacco was found guilty by the jury and sentenced to 31 years in prison on top of his 19-year sentence.